Yeah, now let's mainstream into the conversation. So, Snake, 25, is it percent?
Yeah, 25%.
Or billion? You are adding to everybody's. So it means that additionally, it's based on what they are receiving now.
Yeah, so all pensioners on the pension payroll as of 31st December 2022, they are receiving an increase in their pension. So we have what we call the overall increase, which is 25%. However, the 25% is applied in two forms. So every pensioner, the 234,000 plus pensioners, will each receive 19% increase. Then you have a 6%. So the 6% is calculated on the total pension payroll. So for instance, in December, we paid about 300 million pension to all the pensioners. So we find the 6% of that and distribute that equally to all the pensioners. So you realize that aside the 19% every pensioner is getting, they will get 73 plus 50, 73 cities, 58 pesos on top. So if you've received your increase of 19%, you are receiving the pension of 2,000. It means you are going to get an additional 380 cities by way of the 19% plus 73.58 cities. Okay. So though it is overall 25%, those who may not be receiving so much, okay, though they
are how many?
Low earning pensioners, they are likely to be receiving about 43+% increase in their pensions. So it's not just 25. It's ranging from 19.05 all the way to 43 and above. So people are receiving 43 and over.
What's the quantum, the numbers? Give me the real numbers.
Okay, so I will say
so total you have how many? 234,000
pensions.
234K. How many of them are going to receive the 25%?
Those receiving the 25% will be 68% and above.
Of this number?
Of this number. So then you have few falling below that. And the difference is because of what I just explained. You have a flat rate of 19% plus a fixed amount of 73.58 cities.
So if you work with the numbers, it means that we have a bulk of contributors, or currently those on the fund who are being paid are on pension, who perhaps their premium contributions when they were active were very low.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yes. So, the pension we pay is a reflection of the salaries people insured with us.
If you say people,
I mean workers. I'm
public sector workers.
Not necessarily. The SNP pension scheme is open to all workers. So whether you're self-employed, you're in the public sector, you're in the private sector, and the formula for determining your pension is same. It is non-discriminatory. Okay, so we use the same principle in indexing pension for everyone. We didn't have a different formula for public sector workers and the self-employed. So if you're on pension at the moment, and as of December, you had a certain X amount, that X amount is going to increase by 19%. Then you have the 73.58 cities adding on. So depending on where you fall, you are likely to go beyond or below.
Okay.
So we have a number of people who are receiving above 10,000 cities simply because when they were in active service, the earnings they insured with us was good. We have quite a huge number of people who are getting small basic salaries and huge allowances. You don't contribute Social Security on your allowances. So when you retire, that is going to affect what you take from us. So that is where we should look at. And for those who retired, I indicated people insure up to 11% of their income with us. So somebody on 5,000 cities simply means he's insuring his income using 550. So they pay 550 to us. And to the extent that a person has contributed for the maximum number of years, say 35 years, that person is likely to start a pension on 3,000 cities, subject to annual increase. So somebody who retired in, say, December or let's say November, and started receiving his pension in December, that person is also going to benefit from this increase. So as of December, you just joined a pension payroll on a pension of 10,000 cedis. It means this week, Thursday, that will be paying pension to all our pensioners. That person is going to receive almost 12,000.
Right. But there's one thing here. It looks like the general contribution to the national scheme are by workers who are receiving or continue to receive very low salaries, right? And it's not just the basic, the allowances are not part. So you look at the basic payments by way of the salaries are very small. How do we improve on that? Because SNIT is largely not just public sector workers.
Well, I mean, you should admit, just like you mentioned. But I think first, let me make some clarifications. You called a gentleman who indicated that the public relations manager said that they are getting what they put in. And I think his appreciation was that it was as a result of what is being said now. I think that was in there. What he meant was that the contributions that we make today, that is what we get at the end of our service to whatever we're serving. But Roland, if you were to look at the Pensions Act 766, and you look at Section 80 of the Act, it states that the trust shall annually review the pension payment, which shall be indexed on wage inflation rates of active members or another rate determined by the trust in consultation with the board of the authority. If you have to look at the 25% as announced by SNIT and compare that to the wage inflation we saw, the average wage inflation in 2022, clearly you see that the authorities at SNIT deserves some commendation. Why do I say so? In 2022, I mean, averagely, the wage inflation hovered around some 12.09%. So if we were to go strictly by what the law says, clearly, then workers should be expecting some 12% or some 13% increment in their contributions or the monies they receive from SNIT. But the decision to go high as 25%, one clearly takes into account the current economic situations that we find ourselves. And for me, it has come as a surprise to every worker, especially every pensioner. If I've read news from some pensioners who are expressing excitement at the decision of SNIT to increase to 25%. The redistribution strategy by SNIT, where it looks like they are taking from the rich to service the poor, is one thing that I also commend. I mean, that everybody is taking 19%, but for the 6%, we are turning it into monetary value and we'll distribute it equally. So that if, for instance, we know that the highest pensioner takes some 14,000 or
the highest take 160,000.
160.
It used to be 142,000, but now it's
100,000, yes.
169. Such a person, if the person was taking the entire 25%, meant that he was going to take more money.
Yeah, sure. We shouldn't get to that threshold.
Yes,
right?
but now what they have done is that you let everybody take the 19%. For the 6%, we've converted it into money. So those who take less and those who take high, we are all taking. And for me, it's something that we must commend SNIT for. And so this is a straightforward matter. Thank you very much, SNIT. We have parents who also benefit from our contributions, and we are hoping that, I mean, you continue to improve on their lives. This has come to sustain life. I mean, this morning I spoke to one pensioner in my constituency, and he was so happy. He saw the flyer, and he said that when you come, tell Mr. Tinkrine that we are happy about him, we thank him, and we are excited. That for me is a sense of dominance.
The low salaries or basics that are being paid workers, how do we shore that up within the foreseeable future, because the current workers will go, if you look at the average, by 25 years' time, most of them would have been on pension 20 years, 15 years down the line.
You know, pensions, like insurance, are to provide a certain security for you in old age. And the way God or nature has structured its stuff, as you grow, there is issues of wear and tear. The capacity and the strength to work in old age is not as profound as when you are young. So the question of pension is always a good thing. And so anytime there is an increase, say, in how much will be allocated to an individual on reaching retirement age or whatever, it's always good. But again, we must always know that the pension contribution is always a function of a base amount, which happens to be the salary. And so, in as much as we are looking at, you know, how much contribution goes into the various pensions, what we should equally be concerned with is salary levels and productivity levels. For every employer, you want a situation where your employees will do well, so that at the end, when you declare more revenue, more dividends, whatever, you can pass some on back to the employee to encourage them to work more. Me, the law firm where I operate, our staff there, you must ensure that their SNAID contributions are paid timely. And in this particular instance for an employer, even failure to pay SNAID contribution timeously is the basis for you to be charged criminally.
Yes.
So there are all these mechanisms that have been put in place to ensure compliance with our pension laws and what have you. What has happened so far for me is in the right direction. See, and again, it brings me to the question of this particular program that we started with, the issue of the debt exchange. Because, you see, the law allows for 3 layers, or what we call the 3-tier. Now, tier 2, tier 3 have basically been invested in some of these banks. As we read out in the beginning,
Trustees and
the
others.
trustees, the Association of Bankers, right, Ghana, are saying that they are opposed to the debt exchange program. Do you know why? Because today, as we speak, the banks are overexposed to government securities by 33%. So if you touch the income of the banks, invariably what you're doing is to touch these pensions the same way. So this whole business of you give and take does not help much. Why do you think that from the beginning, the pensioners and what have you were up in arms with government's announcement on this debt exchange program? Because it goes directly to affect them. But you see, the mistake sometimes we also make is that, and I have listened to, we like lawyers particularly, because we do know the individual pension processes, many do not take it serious. The middle class often tend to invest in some of these securities to provide them, quote unquote, their SNAID pension when they are no longer active. So when you have a situation where a particular policy by government is directly going to affect their income when they can no longer work actively, it raises fundamental critical issues. And that is why I think that, look, we need to change the conversation currently going on in the country. We need to have a conversation that is based on transparency, honesty. That is how you are able to carry people along. My brother here is a member of parliament. If you should ask him that of all these debt exchange programs that are going on, he as an MP, whether the persons at the finance ministry have had the opportunity to even sit and take an input. Let's ignore the minority. Hold on, let's ignore the minority side, even their majority side. Ask him whether they've had the opportunity of sitting down with Ken Ofori-Atta.
I think they have.
They have not.
Talking.
Which, the way he's doing what? If they have, would you have the majority leader coming out to say that the inclusion of individual bondholders is problematic? The lack of transparency, even in managing information, It's terribly upsetting. And that is why we need to appreciate that, look, never again, I repeat, should we hand over an economy to set people. Terribly.
I know. I mean,
On the corridors of SNIT, the conversation that is ongoing, because you see, the financial sector is a very cyclical chain. So I know that as a quasi-government institution, you would not want to talk about it because you feel that you are undertaking your mandate very well. But you cannot deny that some of your beneficiaries on pension and their assigns, if you observe the conversation, take their SNIT, take the little from their dependents or those they depend on, and they buy some of these instruments. So on the corridors of SNIT, are you aware? And are you also involved in that conversation with those who have contributed to your scheme over the years regarding the current state of affairs?
Roland, I will say that to a large extent, what as a trust we were mandated to do is to ensure we pay pension when it is due. And to the extent of how they manage those monies, ours is to ensure the money hits your account on the third Thursday of every month. Whatever happens to the money, but somebody may want to travel around the world. That's good. Another may want to marry additional wife or additional husband. That's okay.
Another would want to use this app to buy a treasury bill, or a fixed deposit or a bond or something.
Once the money hits your account, we have no business in how you manage it. But I want to touch on something Eduji said briefly. He made a point that there are a number of his colleagues who do not contribute to the SNIT scheme. And it is true. That is why this year we have embarked on a campaign to increase the number of self-employed who are contributing to the Social Security scheme.
You are?
Yes, we're going to have it launched pretty soon, and it's going to be a very massive campaign because you realize that the number of self-employed who are contributing to the scheme is less than 20,000. So most of the people, they are employees in the private or public sector. So if you look at the picture, it is not so okay because a lot of people only look at pension as old age related stuff. As I speak, we have people in their 30s who are receiving monthly pension. Some came onto the pension payroll in their 20s because the law provides that if you have made at least 12 months contribution within the last 36 months of your work life, and you become permanently invalid, doctors declare you permanently invalid, then you need to be paid monthly pension, and you also receive this indexation that we talk about. So it is something that we need to consider, whether middle class or everybody needs to be considered.
That portion of your advocacy should be repeated, especially the young people, you know, because of the notion that pensions are usually for
government officials
or elderly,
or
persons on retirement. At least that portion of it ought to be repeated.
The part of the conversation is that if you look at our CD as a storehouse of value, the way it erodes, you take back to back. I've known you for a very long time, okay? And if you look at the time that I've known you, we've known each other, and you look at, if we had, let's say, 50,000 Ghana cedi put somewhere, and you look at that value today. So it's about how we're able to manage the economy relatedly and the value of our currency. And so that is situated at the heart of the conversation, right?
I agree with you, and that is a more reason why in the calculation of SNIT, they did not take into account the wage inflation of 12.09%, but instead moved to 25%. I mean, appreciating that the national inflation averagely last year was around some 28.5%, and as of September, and clearly, I mean, averagely from January to
December, I think it ended around 31%.
31%. Yeah. So they took all of this into account. But I mean, I agree with Eduji that we need to do something about salaries. And that is why I was excited last week when I saw the communique from the Ministry of Labour that suggested that they have increased the base pay by some 30%. It's a welcoming news, and I want to commend the Minister, Bafwewa, and his able deputy for this yeoman's job, and also, of course, Labour for their contributions in that. But one striking thing is that the indexation as we see now, for me, is in the last 18 years is the highest that we have seen in the last 18 years. I think in 2005 we saw some 27.4%, and in 1991 it was some 86%. But this one is very high. I mean, and clearly it's taken into account the current mood of the country, the economic situation, and how we want our pensioners to survive and be happy while sitting at home, some of them taking care of their grandchildren, some of them traveling around. I have a particular joint where I usually meet pensioners. And I
in
know
Accra?
Yes, in Accra. And I know that...
You know, just by the courts,
Yeah.
the court complex, just after the road,
Yeah.
there's a Ghana club something.
Okay.
When you go there, a lot of them are there, and you can interact with them.
With them. I mean,
it's not easy.
Just behind TV3, there's a joint called Two Sisters. I don't know if you know them. I mean, yes, you meet them, and I know today will be an exciting day for them.
But you see, the unfortunate thing also is that when you have a situation where these indexes happen and inflation is doing 54%, it tends to erode whatever gain that will come. Because you see, let me tell you this. If you buy diabetes prescriptions, right, for your aged or retired parents, you notice that because they are imported, right, by reason of the depreciation of the cedi alone, the prices have doubled. So notwithstanding the fact that you can obviously parrot some of these interventions, depreciation of the cedi, inflation alone, had basically made things worse off for these pensioners. They are not in the mood of happiness at all. And that is the reality. The massive depreciation of the cedi has not helped at all. BP, diabetes, medications, they've all basically quadrupled. Azithromycin, simple Azithromycin for treating infection, the price had basically doubled. And that is the sad reality that we find ourselves. So we are not actually in the mood to entertain any kind of praise singing now.
All right. Where we are, we have to end the conversation.
Yes.
But in the last few words,
So, Roland, you realize that this morning, New Day, the one that has brought us to, let's say, the discussion on the pensions has, the tempo went down. There was some agreement across the table.
Oh, they're praising.
Yes, obviously, everybody's excited. Everybody's excited about the increase. Okay, that last year we did 10%. This year is an improvement of 150% over last year's increase. Okay, and that is worth mentioning. And considering the environment at the moment for pensioners to get 25%, people are excited out there. I mean, some call that. We had, those getting 43% plus, they are very happy. They didn't see it coming. Okay. So what I want us to also be looking at is the fact that people doing their own jobs need to secure their future. Over 9 million people out there, they do not have this form of social security we are talking about. To the extent that you can insure your income up to 42,000, if you're able to do that, what it means is that you are likely to get 25,000 when you retire on monthly basis.
I have to say that I've had some extensive engagement with Dr. Ofori Tinkran, and he's one man who has some great vision. Because he's lived in the state, he knows that pension should be at the heart of our financial sector. It's only that it's not the way it should be. But we'll see how all that goes with his vision, as well as based on what the board is able to direct. But in the last words, you want us to take not only on SNITs, but also generally the anxiety within, for which we are waiting for that big statement from the finance minister, as you announced.
For the finance ministry today.
Not minister.
well, minister, I mean, with the ministry. But like you rightly said, Mr. Tinkran's management of our scheme is one that must be commended. And I'm not saying this because it's my uncle, but I mean, I've listened to some beneficiaries, and I'm excited. Just to say that let's remain positive as a nation. Let's remain positive as a people, and I know that the current situation that we find ourselves, like the president will always say, this too shall pass. Will certainly pass, and we'll get to better times. That everybody will be very comfortable and live the life. I mean, we're on the path, but for this COVID-19.
Please. I've advised against this whole attempt to globalize your incompetence. Don't do that.
Of course, I mean, it is something. It is something that we've experienced, not just in Ghana. Go to Nigeria, go to South Africa, even in the UK, in the US. They are all experiencing.
They're also with IMF.
So certainly we will certainly get. I mean, being with the IMF, we are all members of the IMF. We are all contributors to the IMF. Every country has a program with the IMF.
Yeah, true.
Even the United Kingdom, the United States, everybody has some form of engagement with the IMF. So going to the IMF, it's like saying that I sit in TV3 and I want to enter TV3. We're already in TV3. We are members of TV3. Just that I can decide that one day I want to be host like Roland is doing, and Roland will be sitting here so that I do the questioning. But we all live in TV3. We all reside in TV3. So there's nothing wrong with going to IMF. We need to do everything to sustain the gains that we have as a people. I mean, the democracy, the peace we enjoy, the security and everything. It's important that we sustain that. And in doing so, demands that we make certain sacrifices. And like I said, I would also urge the Ministry of Finance and all government agencies or various stakeholders to engage properly, I mean, on this matter, so that we chart a path of recovery that we all seek to.
You say, Ro, unfortunately, it does appear government propagandists and assigns really want to blackmail Ghanaians into accepting this debt exchange program.
Why do you say that?
I say that because you have a situation where government scheme, more or less spin doctors are beginning to tell us that without this debt exchange program, this economy will grind to a halt. And if you recall, the same conversation heralded the introduction of e-levy, where we're made to believe that with e-levy, all the problems of Ghanaians will be solved. This is a government that never takes responsibility for the reckless manner in which a very vibrant, buoyant, robust economy today had been reduced to a very bankrupt economy. All what this government is looking for is further space to borrow more with all this debt exchange program. So when you hear people say, oh, you know what, we've gotten to the point where without this debt exchange program, the economy will further be hurt and what have you. It's all part of a blackmailing scheme. What they do not tell us is that they want another opportunity, that fiscal space, to go and borrow more. It's as simple as that. And we should watch out until Akufo-Addo and Bawumia decides to demonstrate utmost good faith to the people of this country. It becomes difficult to sit down with them to agree on a debt exchange program. It's just not possible.
Oh, David says you should be amenable to.
No, I told you that people become patriotic when they know that the government they are dealing with has been patriotic.
Are you showing it to me? Or?
Yes.
Let me see.
So basically, that is it. Let government itself demonstrate that level of patriotism, and then we can take it up from there.
He's known to his constituents as OPK, and Davis Ansopoku is a member of Parliament for Impriso, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And then also legal practitioner Eduji Tamaklo is right here. You're headed to the court, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I
Thank you
have
for
to go and look for daily bread.
I know. They say you should pay your
Today
your
the
SNP
Public
pension.
Accounts Committee
Will be sitting.
sitting
Are you a
today.
member?
I'm the deputy ranking.
Oh, great.
You know, thankfully, we need you by the presser, by the minority on the debt exchange.
Oh,
I hope you'll be
that's
there.
10 or
At 11.
11.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yes, please make sure you come.
And then Mr. Gashon, Charles Gashon, is the PR manager for the
Ministry.
Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, and they've increased the pension payments by some 25%. Well, I have this 90% across, but 25% for some threshold from 68% of the beneficiaries currently. And that's a good thing as well. Thank you for passing through.
Thank you.
That was a great insight. Please make sure that you add the hashtag TV3Newdy to your comments as you go look for our pages, as well as our handles on social media, TV3 Ghana. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.